So again, guys, just on the back side of your handout for today, on your note sheet, any patterns that you notice, these questions are not on your sheet, they're just up on the screen. Anything you notice going from factored form to standard form or standard form to factored form, just jot some ideas down on the back of your sheet. There's no right or wrong here. It's just your observations. And if we can pick out some key patterns, it's going to make our factoring life a lot easier as we move forward. So take a look, give you another minute or two here, and then we will see what people came up with. We'll do a little share out. All right, guys, so what do we think? Throw some ideas my way. Again, there's no right or wrong here. Caden, what do you think? Okay, so the factored form looks like it's multiplying, right? Oh, and all my writing's disappearing. Cool. Let me hang on. Okay, so multiplying polynomials. There we go. Now things aren't disappearing. You're multiplying polynomials, more specifically binomials. What else are we seeing happening? What do we think? Okay, we always have an x squared there, don't we? Okay, so always x squared in standard form. What else are we noticing? What else do you notice, Jonah?
So you're taking like x plus 4 and then 4x and x plus 2 would be 2x, and then you're adding those together and you get like 6x, and then you like get all those x numbers there.
Oh, okay, so you're looking at this one, that top one? Yeah. Okay, so here's what Jonah said. It's an awesome observation. So Jonah said you're going to end up with a 4x and a 2x, right? And he said that's how you're going to get a 6x. Awesome. So we are adding together. I'm going to try to see if I can put into words what Jonah just told us with that specific example. So add together two numbers in, let's see, in the binomials, or in, let's do in factored form. Add together two numbers in factored form to get middle number in standard form. Does that sound good, guys? Are we seeing what Jonah just described to us? Let's see if that works. And it's hard to word it. He did a great job describing the example, but it's hard to word it. So let's see. So for example, in this top one, if I add together the two numbers in factored form, so if I add together -2 and 3, there's really a 1 for that middle term, right? Is -2 plus 3 equal 1? Yeah. Does -8 plus -2 give us -10? What do you guys think? I think we're on to something there. What happens though, let's check out this last one, the first column. What's -2 plus +2? 0. Could we, if we wanted to, could I rewrite this one this way? Could I put a 0x there? Yeah, we just don't have a tendency to write that, do we? So what do we think? Does Jonah's observation work? I think it's looking good. Did you have something else you added onto that, Jonah, or was it just the 4 and the 2 to get 6? The 4 and 2 to get 6? Okay.
But you can multiply those two then to get the numbers on the end.
Oh, okay. Jonah just had another aha moment here. All right. So he also said, we're going to look at that same example. He said, well, if I multiply that 4 and 2 together, oh, I get the 8. All right. So multiply the two numbers in factored form to get, we'll just say the last number, to get last number in standard form. Now, if you're thinking, oh man, I don't know how Jonah came up with that. How did he see that? Well, that's part of why I just wanted you guys to observe some things. The two patterns that he saw, maybe some of you also saw it, you just didn't share it first. Those two patterns, guys, those two recognitions right there are going to help us make our factoring life a lot easier. Because our goal is to get from standard form over on the right to our factored form on the left. Remember, factored form is that reverse of the distributive property. Our final answer for factored form should look like something we want to distribute. So keeping that thought in mind, add the two numbers together. So -3 plus -4 gives me -7. -3 times -4 gives me +12. So those two patterns are going to make us going in reverse of the distributive property a lot easier. So let's go to the front side of our sheets and let's take a look at applying what we just saw there. Now, just like when we were doing our multiplying, our distributing, I have a couple different methods to show you, and you get your pick as always. We've had a lot of choice in this unit, so when I show you different things, it's entirely up to you which way you choose. First of all, before we get into the factoring piece, remember we're going in the reverse of the distributive property. So what I want you to do in that top row, pick your method for distributing, aka multiplying, and fill in that box. So if you liked FOIL, you're going to do the first box. If you liked the grouping method, which was like this, where you split apart that first, I just called it grouping method. I didn't know really a better name for it. Where you split apart like your first binomial and distribute it to the second one, you showed it split apart. Or if you liked the boxes, you're going to do the last one. I'm going to do all three so you can check yours with mine. So while you fill out yours, I'm going to do all three up here. And make sure you simplify all the way and make sure you have standard form. And we should get the same answer no matter which method we choose. So whichever one you want to do, again, make sure you've simplified all the way and that your final answer is in standard form. I wanted you to start with that because we're going to go in the reverse of that. And we're going to see that pattern that we just picked out as we go in reverse. So if you look, and you can look at any of the three methods you want. I'm going to look at the grouping method in the middle. It might make it a little bit easier to see. So we want to go in reverse. So we're going to start with standard form, and we want to get ourselves back up to that factored form. Something we would look like that we would distribute. So as we work our way backwards, notice that same pattern we saw earlier. 2 plus 3 will equal what? It's going to equal the 5. 2 times 3 is going to equal the 6. So to work our way backwards, we have to split our trinomial back into a polynomial with 4 terms, no matter which way we're going to choose today. We need to take our 3-term trinomial and get it back into 4 terms. So we need to find, to do that, sorry guys, this is really touchy again today. We need to find 2 numbers that add to give me the middle. We need 2 numbers that add to give me the middle. Those same 2 numbers multiply to give me that 3rd term. They have to be the same 2 numbers. That's how we're going to go from 3 terms back to 4 so we can finish our factoring piece. Now I want to show you those more concrete ways. I'm going to show you a grouping method and a box method for how we can work our way backwards and factor. There is a shortcut we will figure out at the end, but I want you to have that solid fallback method because the grouping method and the box method are going to be methods we can continue to use throughout the unit. Our other things aren't going to have the shortcut piece like we see today. So I want to make sure we've got the opportunity to see both methods. So I'm going to start with the grouping method for factoring. So here's our goal. We need to find two numbers that, and actually it's easier if you start this way, two numbers that multiply to give me 6, and they add to give me 5. It's easier to think of the multiplication facts than it is to try to think of the addition. There's a lot of numbers I can add together to get 5. There's not a lot of numbers I can multiply to get 6. All right, so multiply to get 6, same two numbers add to give us 5. 3 and 2 are going to fit the bill. 3 times 2, 3 plus 2. If you need to show yourself that, you sure can. So that's the pattern that we saw. Two numbers that multiply to give us that third term. Those same two numbers add to give us that middle term. That's what we need no matter what method we're choosing. All right, now from there, we use those two numbers to make our trinomial back into a 4-term polynomial. So what we do, we keep our x squared, and then our 5x, that middle term, splits up into the 3x and the 2x. And then our plus 6 just kind of hangs out. So those two magic numbers we find, we use that to split that middle term back apart. Remember, we're going in the reverse of distributing. So if we're going in the reverse, we start with 3 terms, and then we work our way back to 4 terms. Now from here, when we did our factor by grouping, if you liked the parentheses way to group, then this is for you. So we're going to group the first two. We're going to group the last two. And this is also a nice refresher on grouping. What's the greatest common factor of that first set of parentheses? X. Okay. So I'm going to take that x out, and we're going to have left just an x and just a 3. What's my GCF of the second set? 2. Divide both by 2. My 2 goes out front. My leftovers are x plus 3. Your two sets of parentheses, doing this method, your two sets of parentheses have to match. They have to match. So when they match, that's our new GCF. You can show this step if you want to. It's up to you. They match. That's my new GCF. The leftovers are x plus 2, and my GCF was x plus 3. Remember, the order that you put the binomials in doesn't matter. What's inside the order of the binomial itself does. So you can, if you want, you could have x plus 3, and you can have x plus 2 come second. It doesn't matter. Now, based on our quizzes from yesterday, I'm not quite finished with those yet, but I had some people that did like the grouping method with the parentheses, and others of you chose the box. The box works for this too. The box works too. You're going to do the same process. You need to multiply to get the last number, and you need to add to get that middle number. And yep, it's going to be the same values. We're going to have a 3 and a 2. 3 times 2, 3 plus 2. I always make myself those little notes, guys, just to make sure that I am getting what I need when I multiply and when I add.
Is that a 2 or a 5?
Oop, I got ahead of myself. Should be a 2. There we go. So now we do the same split. X squared stays. The 5x splits. 3x and 2x. And then our 6 just stays. So nothing else changes. We're just splitting up that 5x into our two magic numbers that we saw the pattern for earlier, the why we're picking those numbers. Now it becomes our box method. Those four values, those four terms, they go in the middle boxes. The order really doesn't matter. So if you put the 3x next to the x squared, or if you put it below the x squared, we'll get the same thing, and that's okay. Now, based on our work on our quizzes, some of us were trying to multiply after we put these terms in the box. Remember, we're going in reverse. We need to find that GCF. So if I start with the first row, I have an x squared and a 3x. My GCF would be an x. So again, I'm trying to figure out what can go into those values. I'm not multiplying them together. We're going in the reverse of our multiplying. Next, I have a 2x and a 6. So 2 can come out of both of those. My first column, x squared and 2x, and x can come out. My last column, 3x and 6, a 3 can come out. Everything's positive. We've got an x plus 2 down the side and an x plus 3 across the top. Whichever way you want to write that, it does not matter to me. It doesn't matter to me one bit. So what I want to do is talk about the magic numbers we need for our next couple examples and give you a chance to try whichever method you want. The new idea for us today is splitting apart that middle term. Otherwise, the grouping piece, we've been working on that for the last few classes. So let's find our magic numbers together. Let's do the split together. And then you choose the method you like. I'll show both up here. I'm not going to leave you hanging by just picking one. And then after we do a few of these, we will talk about the shortcut. But I want to make sure you have a solid way to do these and not just solely rely on a shortcut. Because the grouping or box method, it's going to get us through what we need the rest of our factoring. So not just today, but also our next lesson as well. All right, so let's talk magic numbers here. Remember, we want to start with the multiply first. There's a lot less numbers to think about when multiplying versus adding. I can do a ton of different things to add to get a number. So I want to multiply to get, and we have to watch our signs. Negative 18, and I have to add to get positive 7. So we have to think about how to get 18. And for some of us, I'm going to be very honest, for some of us, that's going to be the challenging part, is finding those two numbers. If you're not super strong with your multiplication facts, some of these might take you a little bit of time to think about. So if I have 18, I think of 6 and 3 right away, but I can't do anything with 6 and 3 to get a 7 added together. What else can give me 18?
9.
9 and?
9.
Multiplying. 9 and 2, right? Okay. So 9 and 2. But now when I add 9 and 2, I need to get 7.
Negative 9.
So which one's going to be negative? So when I add, I get positive 7.
9.
The 2, right? I want positive 7. If I make the 9 negative and I add a positive 2, I'm going to get negative 7. So be careful when you're picking out which one's going to be negative. You have to make sure that when you multiply, you get the correct sign and number, and when you add, you get the correct sign and number. All right, so I'm going to do the split here, and then you choose the method you want. So the x squared stays. The 7x is going to split. Now, let me make a little recommendation to you for my grouping people to make your life a little easier. I recommend putting the negative first and the positive second. So when you go to group, you don't have to worry about getting that negative sign in the second set of parentheses. So I recommend if you've got a positive and a negative that you're going to split, put the negative first. I always see less mistakes. The other way will work, promise. But I see less mistakes if you put the negative first. So from here, you choose your method. If you like the boxes, then just put the same information over in the box method. If you like the grouping with the parentheses, go ahead and group. And let's see what we get from there. I will do both up here so you can check yours with mine. So I'm going to group first two and last two. Find your GCF. Write your leftovers. Remember, your parentheses have to match. If you're doing the grouping method with the parentheses, your parentheses have to match. If they don't, you have to relook at your signs. Again, the box method, if you like that best, take our 4 terms and just kind of arrow over. Remember with the box method, you're not multiplying there. We're going in the reverse. We're looking for that common factor to factor out. When you have that double negative in the second column, you need to factor out a negative. So check yours with mine. If you're feeling good about your method, I'm not going to stop you. Go ahead and go on to that third one. See if you can come up with the numbers. And if you're confident, go ahead and move forward. If not, I'm going to come around and see what we need. All right, let's look at the final one on the front side, and then we do just have one more left on the back. All right, so on the front side, if you had already kind of tried this out, we're looking to multiply to get 15, and we add to get -8. Now remember, we have to make sure our signs work out. So if I multiply to get 15, what's the first thing you think of to multiply to get 15? 3 and 5, right? Okay. So 3 times 5, I'm set there. That'll give me positive 15, 3 times 5. But if I try to do 3 plus 5, I don't get -8. I have to watch my signs. I have to make sure I get the 2 numbers I need. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So what can I change? What can I fix? I think 3 and 5 is going to do it for us, but I don't get -8. Okay, let's try making both negative. -3 times -5. Still positive 15? Okay. -3 plus -5, -8. We have a winner. We have a winner. Now, with this one, guys, I do want to make sure, if you've already started it, keep rocking it, because that means you're already confident with your grouping. For this one, though, with the double negative, I do want to go through both methods with the double negative one. This is the case that I saw on the quiz we weren't real sure on. And to be honest, when we went through the grouping and box methods a couple classes ago, I wasn't super specific on how to check your signs. So I do want to go through both ways with you and make sure that we're getting the correct signs to finish with. Okay. All right, so I'm going to group first 2. And guys, remember, we have to be careful with that negative in the middle. Big reason I wanted to go through this one with you together also. That negative, if you need to put plus a negative or whatever you need to do, when I group, that 5x has to be negative. It has to be negative. That sign has to go with it. It has to go in that second group. So when I factor out of the first one, I have an x in common. Take the x out, I'm left with just x minus 3. Now, when I look at my second set, I have to divide by a number that's going to give me another x minus 3. Our parentheses have to match. So if I just divide this second set by 5, I'm going to end up with -x plus 3. I don't match. in order for us to use this method, what's in the parentheses has to match because that's going to be my GCF. That's going to be my common factor. If they don't match, they're not common. So instead of dividing by plain old 5, I have to divide by -5. I have to make sure that what's inside the two sets of parentheses matches. If you have the right terms but just opposite signs, you've got to divide by that negative piece. Now that they match, now I can do my division. Whether or not you show that division step right here, I'm leaving that up to you. If you want to jump right to the end, hey, I'm fine with that. That's okay. Just watch out for that negative. It has to go in the second grouping, and then you have to make sure your parentheses match. Now, for the box method, again, guys, the split's going to be the same. So we're going to have -5 and -3. So we have x squared minus 3x minus 5x, and we have a plus 15. Now, this is the type that, I'll be very honest, when we have the two negatives in the middle there, I didn't do a great job with this with the box method, and I saw that on our quiz results, so I want to make sure we hit on one of these today, and I got more specific on it. When I look across the first row, I can factor out an x. When I look across the bottom row, I'm looking at, well, a 5 can come out. This is what a lot of you did with the box method. The first column, x is in common. And the last column, a lot of you I know would put a 3. Here's where we have to make sure we check our signs. And again, I didn't do a great job of this when we did the box method the first time with our grouping method. If I do this, and now we have a little bit easier way to check. If I were to go back and multiply, if I do x times x, I get x squared. That's okay. But if I do x times 5, do I get -5? No. So after you think you have yourself factored, you've got the right GCFs, double check by multiplying. Because remember, factoring, we're undoing the distributive property. So if we're going to check it, redistribute, remultiply. So if I remultiply, x times 5 won't give me -5x. I need a negative there. If I recheck my multiplication, get those little arrow things out of there. If I recheck my multiplication with x and 3x, I don't get the -3 that I need. So I need to take out a -3 here. So that's going to be, I don't want to say the catch with the box method, but it's going to have to be your check. And again, I kind of glossed over that when we did that box method a couple classes ago, but we have to make sure if we were to actually do the multiplying that we would get what's in those 4 middle boxes. So just double check your signs. Okay, that's going to be the important piece. All right, one more quick example, and then we're going to talk shortcut. And then we'll practice. If you go to the flip side, you might be like, Miss Golly, we're missing something. I can't multiply to get the last term and add to get the middle term because, well, there is no middle term. If the middle term is missing, what can we put in there? A 0, yeah. If something's missing, I can always put a 0 in its place. That's okay. So we don't have to learn something totally different just because, oops, we don't have an x in the middle. We can put a 0. And these you guys are going to find are the easiest ones of all because you're going to multiply to get -9, but you're going to add to get 0. So if you're adding to get 0, you need a pair of opposites, a plus and minus of the same number. What's going to work for us with 9? 3 and -3, yeah. So if we split, we're going to have -3 and +3. We have our -9. When you have that 0 for your middle term, those are going to be your easiest ones to figure out your two magic numbers. They're always going to be opposites. So then from there, guys, go ahead, choose your method. If you want to group, if you want to do boxes, whatever you like. I'm going to zoom both up here real quick. You can choose your method. Hopefully by the time I'm done with both, you're done with the one you have chose. And we should get the same result no matter which way you do. So either way should work for us. And actually, I'm going to do the minus plus up here. Now, I know for some you're like, Miss Golly, so there's this shortcut column that's been blank, and I really like shortcuts. Guess what? So do I. So let's look back through. I want to see if we can grab the same pattern. We had talked about it earlier. Look at our two magic numbers. Look at our end result. What do you notice? They're the same. If we go back to the front side of our sheet, look at our two magic numbers. Look at our end result. They're the same. Look at our two magic numbers. Look at our end result. Two magic numbers. Look at our end result. They're the same. Now this shortcut, I want to be very specific on this. This shortcut only works when you have a plain x squared to start your trinomial. There can't be a number in front of it. We're going to talk about that in our next lesson. This shortcut only works if you have there's a 1 in front of it really, but you have an x squared, you have an x term, and you have a term without an x. You have a quadratic, highest exponent 2, trinomial, you have 3 terms. So the shortcut is you just take your two magic numbers. So we multiply to get 6, add to get 5. Magic numbers were 3 and 2. You put one magic number with an x in one set. You put the other magic number with the x in your second set. No extra work needed. Now I know some are like, Miss Callie, why didn't you just show us that to start? Because the other method you learned today, either the grouping or the box, we need that for our next few lessons because there's no shortcuts. There's no shortcuts for our next few lessons. So I wanted to make sure we establish that today. When you do your practice, you choose. If you want to do the shortcut, that's fine. No problem.